All right, so my name is Gord McNichol. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Botany and Plant Pathology, and I am a plant ecologist and theoretical ecologist. So the plant ecologist in me is interested in understanding patterns of species diversity. So, if you go to a forest around Indiana, you're pretty likely to find between 20 and 30 species of trees. There are other parts of the country and other parts of the world where you might find as few as 10 species or as many as several hundred species. And ecologists don't actually have a good answer to why there are these differences. And so part of my research seeks to understand that. I do a lot of work in forests, but I also do work in sort of more grassland communities. So one of the ways to study diversity is to go out into the field and actually manipulate it. So I'm actually sitting in the middle of a giant garden that I planted. You can see there's a plot here with an assemblage of species that's relatively short. And over here, a different assemblage of species that's really tall. And I'm sitting in the middle of an experiment out at one of the Purdue farms that actually has 200 plots like this, 25 different species that we planted several years ago. So that's one of the ways that we study diversity. Another way is to do a similar kind of thing in forests. You could imagine that different assemblages of trees might grow better or worse together. You could imagine how this might be useful for conservation, but it also might be useful for timber production, which is really important in Indiana. I'm increasingly starting to think about weeds in crops and how you might think about questions of diversity in the context of crops and weeds, right? So contrary to the normal conservation goal, weeds in an agricultural system are kind of like a situation where you don't want diversity. And so can we apply ecological principles to control weeds in a way that might be beneficial to farmers? The second part of what I do, I think I said I'm a theoretical ecologist. That means that I do a lot of strange maths. In particular, I'm really interested in evolutionary game theory. So game theory is just the mathematics you would use to describe a game. And my hypothesis is that all the interactions in nature, sort of between plants that might shade each other, different trees that might take different amounts of nutrients, and all of the pathogens and herbivores and pollinators and other mutualists that help plants, that all of those interactions, they take on the essential features of a game where the things that one player in an ecological system, like tree number 5, and another player like pollinator number 12, the things they do in the system shape how they interact with each other. They shape how successful they are in nature, how much they survive, and other things like that. And so in that way, I like to imagine that interactions in nature take on the essential features of the game, and that we can use the mathematics that mathematicians have invented to describe games, to describe patterns in nature. So that's what I do. I'm interested in diversity. I really like developing mathematical models, and I love sitting out here among all these flowers and taking long walks through the forest. So yeah, feel free to shoot me an email. I often have undergrads in my research, and I'd be excited to meet any of you that think that what I do sounds interesting. Thanks.